All right, thanks for joining us, everyone. My name is Emily Silence. I am the Development Associate at Potomac Riverkeeper Network. And today we're going to be talking about kind of the power of service and volunteerism. A little bit of housekeeping before we get started. Everyone's on mute, just you know how it is with Zoom meetings. Feel free to type some questions in the chat or comments or any interactions you want to do with each other. We will be answering questions at the end of the webinar. We'll make sure to leave lots of time for that. And I am recording as well too, so I will send out the recording probably tomorrow to everyone who's attending, or maybe missed a chance to actually get to interact in person. So like I said, I'm Emily Silence. I'm joined by my colleague Morgan, who is our volunteer coordinator at Potomac Riverkeeper Network, and Taylor Swanson, who is the outreach coordinator at Interfaith Partners for the Chesapeake. I will let Morgan and Taylor talk about their respective organizations, but Taylor, I know, wanted to do a little reflection before we get started, so I'm going to let you do that.
Thank you so much, Emily, and thank you so much, everyone who's joined us today. We're so excited to have you. We very regularly, with my organization that I work for, Interfaith Partners for the Chesapeake, we love to step into our faith shoes a little bit and start and sometimes end our programming with reflections. So I have a piece today that was gifted onto IPC before my time joining that I'd love to share with you. It's called Water Unites Us All. And please join me. Water flows through veins of earth and body, arteries of rivers, sustaining life. Everything, insect, bird, tree, fish, flower, human, strands in an intricate web of life. Sing praise for our Creator. These hands, our hands, may they be instruments of healing to the whole web of creation. May we be vessels of peace and protection for the sacred waters that unite us all. May our choices reflect love for all life around us. Source of blessings, open our mind and hearts to heal our disconnect from the sacred waters of the Chesapeake Bay Watershed. Free us to live, grow, flourish, and sustain abundant life for all upon this earth, our shared home. Empower us, call us forth, walk with us on their journey to mend the web of life. Thank you.
Thanks, Taylor. That was a really wonderful reflection. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now, and we can get right into it. Go ahead and can everybody see that all right? Just go ahead and give me a nod. Right on. I'm seeing some thumbs up. Well, thank you everyone for joining us, and thank you, Taylor, for kicking us off. As Emily said, my name is Morgan Bench. I'm the volunteer coordinator for Potomac Riverkeeper Network, and I'm very excited to be here today talking to you guys about the state of our river and the power of our volunteers. Before we jump in, I want to tell you guys a little bit about our organization, who we are and what we do. So we are an environmental nonprofit that works to protect and defend your right to clean rivers. We are a part of a larger waterkeeper movement that is a worldwide movement growing to help prevent pollution in the watersheds and ensure that we have safe drinking water, healthy river habitats, and enhance public use and enjoyment. We have 3 riverkeepers underneath our organization. We have Dean Nyax, the Potomac Riverkeeper, Brent Walls, our Umber Potomac Riverkeeper, and Mark Frondorf, our Shenandoah Riverkeeper. So let's talk a little bit about our watershed. Our watershed is large, to say the least. It is over 14,000 square miles. We've got over 6 million residents, and it spans 4 states and DC. It's the second largest tributary of the Chesapeake Bay. So all of this combined, we have an incredibly diverse watershed and a large array of issues facing the watershed. For our purposes today, we're going to be focusing primarily on the DC waterfront area from just north by Rockville down towards Mallows Bay and Port Tobacco. That's where the majority of our residents live and where the majority of our volunteer initiatives take place. So you can kind of see the correlation between the two of those things. So in order to understand the state of our river, let's give you guys a very brief history of our river, kind of starting from the 1900s forward. So swimming in the Potomac River used to be a very common occurrence, particularly along the DC waterfront. It was a respite from the summer heat, and there is a recording that up to 20,000 people were swimming in the tidal basin in just one day of July of 1920. So it was an incredibly common thing along the DC waterfront to enjoy swimming in our river. However, it was whites only at the time, and when there was a push for desegregation, Southern lawmakers pushed back and all the swimming beaches were closed. After that point, sewage and toxic chemicals were continually released into our river, posing serious health risks to anyone who came into contact with the river, up to the point that in 1965, President Johnson declared our river a national disgrace, which is incredibly unfortunate. And in 1971, DC banned swimming in the river as a response to the pollution. You can see here there is raw sewage being dumped into the river and a full ban along our waterfront. Fortunately, in 1972, we decided to do something about it, and Congress passed the Clean Water Act. Since the passing of the Clean Water Act established the goals of fishable, swimmable waterways for every American, the Potomac has enjoyed a really steady recovery. And over the past 20 years, our organization has actually used the Citizen Enforcement Act of the Clean Water Act to hold countless polluters accountable and defend your right to clean water. And we've been incredibly successful in doing so. So this is another quote from President Lyndon Johnson about the Potomac as well. It says, "The river, rich in history and memory, which flows by our nation's capital, should serve as a model of scenic and recreation values for the entire country." And I know our organization couldn't agree more. So now let's dive into the main reason we're all here today, to talk about our organization and the power of our volunteers. Potomac Riverkeeper Network has three main volunteer initiatives that we spearhead. They are our Community Science Water Quality Monitoring Program, our Trash Free Potomac campaign, and our Rapid Response Team. I'm going to talk briefly about each of those, and then we can hold our questions until the very end if you have any. So we're going to dive in first with one of our most robust volunteer initiatives, which is our Community Science Water Quality Monitoring Program. This program began in 2019 as a result of the lack of water quality data that was in our area. Dean Knox, your riverkeeper, was getting pretty regularly asked, what's the water quality like? When can I go in the river? Is it safe to swim in certain areas? Is it not safe to swim in other areas? And there was no data to back any of this up beyond, there's a correlation between rain and pollution and not to go in the water for 48 hours after it rains. Our organization decided that this gap in data is a huge public health risk and something that we could help mitigate. So we launched our water quality monitoring program. We were lucky enough to get donated a Chesapeake Bay dead rise by a retired Navy admiral and convert it into a floating lab for our water quality monitoring program that is now level 3 certified by the Virginia DEQ. We now test for bacteria, turbidity, pH, air temperature, and water temperature. Our data then gets uploaded to the Chesapeake Monitoring Cooperative, so other environmental organizations and scientists can access that data, and is also uploaded to the Swim Guide app, which is a totally free app that you can download on your smartphone. You can find it on the internet, and it will give you all of our data about when and where it is safe to swim in the rivers. So our water quality monitoring program is not possible without our volunteers. We have 80 trained volunteers throughout the Potomac watershed as of right now that are monitoring 24 different sites weekly from May all the way to October throughout Maryland, DC, and Virginia. Our volunteers go out, collect samples Wednesday morning, and bring them to our lab where they are processed, analyzed, and posted online by another absolutely rock star volunteer that we have, Lisa Wu, who you guys can see here. This would not be a power of volunteers without mentioning Lisa. She has been a godsend for our organization, and this program really could not be possible without her. Another note to just say that our data has been viewed on Swim Guide almost 17,000 times just this season. So the work that our volunteers are doing is really giving a public service. Folks are interested about when and where it's actually safe to interact in our watershed, and we're filling that gap and letting folks know. So our volunteer training program has evolved pretty significantly in the past couple of years since we've been doing it. We began with in-person trainings and certification tests in 2019. And then of course, 2020 kind of forced everybody to adapt and overcome with in-person events. And we created online training modules and online testing. That actually allowed our program to expand in ways that we weren't expecting, and it made it much more accessible for our volunteers. Moving forward, we are using a hybrid training module where volunteers can watch the modules on their own time, on their own computer, come see an in-person demo and take a tour of our lab, and then take an online test and become certified. This has allowed us to access more volunteers throughout the watershed and just reach a much broader audience, and allows us to have more river stewards throughout our Potomac River. So all of this data has also been compiled into our Swimmable Potomac report. Over the past 3 years, our volunteers' data has shown that it is safe to swim in the Potomac River more than 75% of the time. So we're using this volunteer data that's been collected as well to help lift the DC swim ban that was put in place and restore access to this wonderful thing that we have in our backyards for all of our residents moving forward. So that's a quick overview of our water quality monitoring program. I'm going to move pretty quickly through these to leave time for Taylor and leave time for questions at the end as well. I'm going to move on now to our trash-free Potomac River cleanups. This is probably one of the main volunteer initiatives we have, certainly the one that gets the most volunteers involved, and something that I think a lot of people think of when they think of volunteering for an environmental organization. So to talk trash-free Potomac, we have to talk a little bit of trash first. Growing up, you guys, I'm sure, seeing along the watershed, there is trash everywhere washed up. It is a growing problem within our watershed. This photo here was taken in Oxen Cove, which is a national park. The main sources of a lot of this trash include stormwater runoff, litter, and illegal dumping. And river cleanups are a fantastic opportunity to actually mitigate this problem, collect data to use, and then publicly advocate for real solutions to this ongoing issue that our rivers are facing. We run 3 regularly scheduled cleanups a month from April to November at National Harbor, Alexandria Waterfront, and on Dangerfield Island. And we also have a couple other really unique opportunities, including our Oxen Cove Earth Day cleanup, and then corporate or community days of service, where we will partner with private organizations or private businesses to bring out their staff or volunteers to make an impact in their watershed. So let's talk a little bit about the numbers. In 2021, we had 828 volunteers engaged over the course of the year and removed 939 bags of trash from the river, which I think is astronomical. And in 2022, we are on track for meeting those standards as well. So far this year, we have 673 volunteers engaged and 755 bags of trash have been removed. And obviously, this is going to be ongoing until the end of November. So a pretty significant impact. I want to talk a little bit about our Oxen Cove cleanup because I think it's a really wonderful story to celebrate the power of our volunteers. So in November of 2020, our riverkeeper was taking a bike ride along Oxen Cove and discovered what was dubbed Trash Island that you can see here on the right. Dean decided that this was unacceptable to leave in Oxen Cove, which is a national park, and that we had to do something about it. So in January of 2021, in the bitter cold of winter, over the course of several weekends, we had 131 volunteers come out, remove 271 bags of trash, over 20,000 water bottles, 754 plastic straws, 57 tires, and 55 shopping carts from our river. This was such a success that we decided to actually turn this into an annual cleanup. The way that Oxen Cove is situated in our watershed, it's a recurring problem there that trash runs down Oxen Run and gets trapped in the cove along the waterfront there. So we decided to partner with National Park Service and make this an annual thing, starting in April when it's a little warmer and to celebrate Earth Day. So to this year, in our inaugural Earth Day cleanup, we had 191 volunteers show up. We removed 281 bags of trash, over 7,000 water bottles, 17 tires, and only 5 shopping carts this year. So a bit of an improvement. But it was just an incredibly rewarding river cleanup to be a part of and to see the power that folks can have when they come together and make a difference in our watershed. So let's talk a little bit about why do trash cleanups, because a lot of questions that I get in regards to our cleanup are, this is not the long-term solution to the trash problem, which is true. But the reason that trash cleanups are so impactful are that they're a great opportunity for grassroots advocacy. It's a really low commitment opportunity for volunteers to get involved and start conversations about the trash pollution. It's a great opportunity for data collection of facts and figures that give us a better understanding of the trash problem in our watershed, how to address it moving forward. It's also incredibly fun and rewarding for volunteers to give back to their communities and meet like-minded people. It's one of my favorite parts of my job, is getting to go to these trash cleanups and talk to the public about how good they feel doing these, what other ways they can get involved, and kind of welcoming them into the environmental movement and into our organization. The last thing I want to talk to you guys about is our volunteer rapid response team. This is a new initiative that we have been starting this year. We are hoping that it's going to expand and improve our organization's ability to respond to pollution tips and reports. So we are training volunteers to properly spot pollution, properly sample pollution, and then how to respond to pollution events, including which organizations and which officials to contact for which types of pollution. Our volunteer rapid response team is an entirely volunteer-led initiative, with our rapid response team leaders and trainers both being experienced and dedicated volunteers. And it has been spearheaded by another rockstar volunteer that we have, Carl Sheeter. This program is allowing our volunteers to become watchdogs for their communities as well as our organization and help ensure that pollution is addressed throughout the watershed. I don't have as many wonderful facts and figures to share for this program because it's just getting off the ground, but I will put a plug out that we've had 12 folks trained so far. We've had several responses to pollution that have actually given us good data to see where is pollution coming from and how are we going to address it. And we have a rapid response team training coming up in the end of September. So if anybody is interested in becoming a watchdog in your community, getting trained on how to respond to pollution, feel free to come and join us at that. So that's a little bit about my spiel. I'm going to turn it over to Taylor in a minute here before we get to our questions. But I also want to let you guys know that if you want to get involved, we would be more than happy to have you out with us. Feel free to sign up for our newsletter on our website to get notified about upcoming volunteer opportunities. Please consider becoming a member of our organization or donating to help support a lot of these programs. They certainly are not entirely free for our organization to be spearheading, and every dollar makes a difference. And also please check out our website's events calendar and join us at one of our upcoming events. If you have any other questions or want to get in touch with me, also feel free to email me at morgan@prknetwork.org. Taylor, I will turn it over to you now to take it away before we do questions at the end.
That was fantastic. You had some wonderful photos in there. Okay, let me cue up. Well, hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to introduce myself again from the beginning. My name is Taylor Swanson. I work for Interfaith Partners for the Chesapeake. I am one of our outreach coordinators, specifically tasked with Southern Maryland with a primary focus on Anne Arundel, but our organization is looking to expand, and we are now taking a greater interest in greater Southern Maryland, being Calvert, Charles, PG, and St. Mary's County. So we're very excited to be starting to branch out our work into not only that region, but into the Potomac River watershed. We are thrilled to be talking and working alongside Potomac Riverkeepers Network, and so excited to see what can happen. We work with riverkeeper groups across the Chesapeake Bay, over on the Eastern Shore and up in Pennsylvania. They are unbelievable and accomplish so much, and we are thrilled to be partners with others, as well as now with the Potomac Riverkeepers. So a couple things, let me just say a few things about Interfaith Partners with Chesapeake and who we are. So we're an organization dedicated towards helping congregations of faith, any faith, in forming what we call a green team, and then taking on not only environmental goals, but finding support in order to pursue those goals. We have recognized that our communities of faith are very dedicated and focused towards service towards their communities, particularly towards things that often are categorized in terms of their relationship with social justice. We've taken a stand that social and environmental justice are no longer as separated as they were in the past, and that helping both of those issues now in many ways helps each other. And so we recognize that many of our people, our congregations of faith, have been called to assist the earth and to heal the wounds and in process heal their own. So Morgan had a chance to share a little bit about the Potomac River watershed, but I want to talk just briefly about the Chesapeake Bay watershed because it is vast, it is huge, it is impressive. For anyone in here who's not familiar with the term watershed that Morgan and I have been throwing around here, a watershed is the area of land surrounding a body of water in which all of the water that would come onto the land, either pulled from the ground, from ground sources, or in precipitation, will find its way downhill eventually into the Chesapeake Bay. Our watershed is massive. It covers more than 500 miles from Cooperstown, New York, down to Norfolk, Virginia. It has more than 18 million people living inside of it, covers 6 states, including Washington, D.C., where some of you might be. There is a fact on here, though, that I really want to highlight. There's a lot of big numbers, and we're going to throw around some big numbers today, especially in terms of our volunteers. But I want to highlight the potential of what we, IPC, is trying to do here in the Chesapeake Bay. We recognize that there are 18,000 congregations of faith spread across this watershed, spread across 6 states. We like to imagine the potential if all of them came together to take action for the Chesapeake Bay, and not just action for the people in the bay, but the people, the wildlife, and those who come and go as tourists into the bay. The potential is unbelievable. And so Wendell Berry has a great quote, and that we need to do unto others downstream as we'd have others upstream do unto us. It's a perfect philosophy for anyone who lives on a river, especially those of you in the Potomac River watershed here, and that the actions that you take on the land have great consequences for those who live downstream from you, both in terms of the water and the land. There's a fact that's not on this sheet that I want to highlight that's very unique to the Chesapeake Bay watershed. We have the greatest land to water ratio of any coastal watershed in the entire world, a 14-to-1 ratio of land to water. That means your actions on the land have a greater impact for the water than almost anywhere else in the entire world. It means that you actually have the chance to make a real, tremendous difference for this watershed because of that relationship. So I remind everyone, though, we're all in a bathtub. There's 18 million of us inside of this bathtub, and that poses a lot of challenges. When you're inside a bathtub with 18 million people, all you can really see is problems. It's very easy, and I'm going to step back and we're going to look at Chesapeake bathtub. It's very easy to sit here in Maryland and look at the pollution coming from Pennsylvania. Very easy for me to look down at Norfolk and the shipping channels and ships coming up into Baltimore. But what's harder is to look at my own little piece of the watershed. And a pastor I very closely work with in Baltimore, he gave me a really great piece of wisdom in my first month on the job. And he said this to me. He said, I don't know how to change the country, and I don't know how to change the world, but I certainly know how to have an impact in my neighborhood where my parish is. And I thought that was a very profound statement from Pastor Michael Martin. And I'd like to share a little bit about what he's done in his journey in just a second. But Pastor Michael Martin identified for himself and for me that you do not have to be a Chesapeake expert. You don't have to be an environmental expert to take on some of these challenges. You just need to know about your neighborhood. You just need to care about the people and wildlife who live in your little corner. And if we all took the time to stitch those little pieces together, it would be amazing what we could accomplish. Pastor Michael Martin has transformed his little corner of very, very urban Baltimore into a shining green oasis. He took a 4-acre strip of land, and I do mean strip, no more than 100 feet wide at times, and was able to transform it through the help of IPC and a huge number of other partners, including the Park Service. They have now planted more than 3,000 trees inside their woodland. They have removed hundreds of pounds of invasive species. They have restored the stream way to a state where they can now reintroduce fish species like pumpkin seed back into the stream. And not only that, but they have garnered so much attention through their work here that they have now begun connecting with other congregations upstream And they are working with those congregations to all together promote this idea of improving their waterway, their sacred waterway. It's really powerful and profound. It's provided STEM opportunities for students who live in those neighborhoods who would otherwise not have that, as well as a green space for residents who otherwise had no green spaces at all. And so where does IPC fit in? We find ourselves to be a translator and connector in many ways. Not only do we help form green teams, but we help support our green teams. And we do that by connecting them not only with other environmental groups, but to other faith communities who are doing stuff, as well as our municipalities. We do this to help cut red tape, make things easier. There's no point in reinventing the wheel. If we have a dozen congregations already doing something you wish to do, why not use them as a model? And so we go back to Pastor Michael Martin's idea. You don't have to be an expert of the bay. You need to be an expert of your parcel. And Wendell Berry says it perfect here. The question that must be addressed is not how to care for the planet, but how to care for each of the planet's millions of humans and natural neighbors, each of its millions of small pieces and parcels of land. Wendell Berry and Pastor Michael Martin both were right and had the same idea. And I encourage you to adopt that philosophy as you start thinking about your own journey into the environment. And you're not alone. Don't worry, you are not alone. IPC has worked now with more than 300 congregations. And specifically, this map is showing 120 congregations who have signed our Interfaith Partner Pledge, which I'm going to talk about in a moment here. Each one of these dots on this map represents a congregation who has formed a team and taken on an action, whether in the ground or educational, to help promote the environment, help promote the Chesapeake in some way. These actions represent thousands of pounds of stormwater reductions and tens of thousands of pounds of sediment reductions from going into the bay. They're doing a tremendous amount of work. And at the end of our presentation here, I'm going to take a moment to explore through what a couple of them are doing to give you a real visual example of what some of our volunteers at IPC, some of our green teams are up to. But it all starts in the same place. And so what can your congregation do? Well, it starts here. Most congregations start with our program, which we call Faithful Green Leaders Training. This is a program to help you solidify a team together, identify environmental actions that you could take on, learn the secrets of recruiting others to your movement, as well as pulling in faith leadership support, and then to go forth and take action for the Chesapeake Bay, whether through programs, projects, events, or educational opportunities. Our 139 congregations who have now completed Faithful Green Leaders Training have proven to us definitively that congregations who form a team take action. And you can see below, those 139 teams over the last 3 years have instigated more than 680 projects, programs, and events. We are so proud of that number, and I can't wait to break that down in a little bit. We do have another training coming up soon, so if you're interested in forming your own team and doing some of this work or looking at what else could be done, then I highly encourage you to reach out so that we can talk. Our next training starts on October 13th. It's a 3-part event. There'll be wonderful guest speakers. There'll be dozens of other congregations participating. It's always a lively, very fun experience. It takes place in the evenings, so it's very easy to join. I certainly hope to see some of you there. Beyond Faithful Green Leaders Training, I had mentioned at the beginning that we have a pledge. We now have 120 congregations who have signed our partner congregation pledge, which has helped them join a greater movement of faithful stewards across the bay. It really helps to solidify that the green team is not a separate entity from the church, but is rather helping share with congregation members a greater pledge. It includes 4 things. It tells you to celebrate, respect, and revere the earth's blessing, to demonstrate good stewardship and how we manage our land and facilities, and to engage members of our community in the work of caring for the environment, and to embrace the mission of Interfaith Partners of the Chesapeake to protect and restore our shared watershed. We found that this is a really powerful tool in terms of bringing other people into your movement and solidifying what you're doing in your congregation. I highly encourage anyone and everyone who is interested in joining our movement to take a look at what this pledge is and what it might mean for your congregation. Every month, we also put together a learning opportunity so that way your green team has ways to continually be engaged and learn more about new topics. These topics cover a huge range of subjects, including stormwater management, native plantings, project maintenance, grant funding. Truly, there is dozens and dozens of these. We save them on our website and record all of them, so you're more than welcome to go explore them and share them with others at your congregation. We also have regularly posted events all across the watershed, from up in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, all through the eastern and western shores. Please take a look at those and see if any are of interest to you. We typically also include the social media kits along with those. So if they are of interest to you, they might be of interest to other people at your congregation, and we encourage you to share all of our events. We also have a huge library of resources to help support our congregations, everything from action kits, plug and play type resources, all the way down through resources for building and supporting your team, chances to learn more about environmental justice, and our menu for action, which is a themed document, a regionally themed document, which includes dozens of ways that you can engage your congregation in what we do. We also have a new resource on here that I do want to show people, which is over here called the Skills Matrix and Projects and Programs. This is, I'm actually going to open it. This is a laundry list of what our congregations are up to. And if you come in here, you can see not only, we're going to let it load, you can see not only what some of our congregations are doing in terms of our projects in the ground, things like rain gardens, cisterns, bioswales, pollinator meadows, as well as some of our programs that they're putting together. These are educational events and opportunities. Please explore this. It has a wonderful wealth of information about what our congregations are doing, and also includes some contact info. So if you wanted to learn more from the Green Team leaders themselves, it does include that as well. Okay, well, let's get to the fun part, what everyone's here for. I want to show what some of our congregations are doing. And if you've been paying close attention in the background, there's been a couple examples along the way, but I want to take a deeper dive into some of the more common projects that we see some of our congregations do. But I do want to highlight for everyone in the room that what our congregations are doing is at the limit of their imagination. Our congregations are being really creative with ways they're tackling their environmental problems. What I do as an outreach coordinator for Interfaith Partners for the Chesapeake is I help my teams identify what they can do. And then they take it upon themselves to decide what they and their congregation is capable of doing. There's no point in overstretching ourselves, especially in this day and age where things are so stressful. This is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be a great chance to engage the environment, our youth, each other. Let's take a look at what they're doing. First, I want to introduce you to Knox Presbyterian Church up in Baltimore. Knox Presbyterian Church did a major street tree planting project all throughout their very urban section of Baltimore. These trees with time will grow to be large oaks, redbuds, and maples, which will provide shade for the community, saving them hundreds of dollars on air conditioning bills with time, and also providing desperately needed habitat for a huge host of pollinators and other species that depend on trees like large oaks for laying their eggs and raising their caterpillars. Knox Presbyterian Church, through engaging their community and youth around this tree planting, now has desires to go forth and create a composting program in which members of their congregation would be able to compost right at their congregation, and that compost could be bagged and then shared with other community gardens throughout the city. Knox Presbyterian Church is an interesting example under our toolbox, because Knox Presbyterian Church is located on less than a quarter acre of land in Baltimore. They actually didn't have the space to plant more than 2 trees on their entire property. And so we looked broader and were able to plant I believe it was nearly 100 trees all across this urban section. St. Peter's Episcopal Church over in Salisbury just last year installed a permeable parking lot. This is going to allow this normally impermeable surface to allow rainwater to percolate through the ground, filtering it before it ends up in the Wicomico River. They threw a fantastic party for this, and you can see that in the background here. It attracted attention from local media sources. You can see the camera there from the local Wicomico News chapter, as well as congregation members and community members abroad who are interested in seeing what they're doing. They've gone forth now and are installing a variety of other pollinator and rain gardens, which will help to mitigate a small amount of flooding that was occurring on the property and hopefully extend the life of their congregation. The installations will also be attracting in pollinators and hopefully will serve as a way station for monarchs. Empowering Believers Church is one that's in my neck of the woods here in Anne Arundel County. Empowering Believers has been doing a lot for a long time. If you can't see the top right of your screen, I encourage you to move the little chat window around so that you can see it. That is a picture of their flooding after a 2-inch rainstorm. And if you look carefully, you can see the van in the background with the water well above the back tires. More than 3 feet of water accumulated at this congregation during that rainstorm. It is not the only time that this has happened, and it's not the only time that this has happened since this 2020 rainstorm. Empowering Believers, though, has since installed a variety of rain gardens and bioswales. One of the rain gardens can be seen here in this picture, surrounding their property, which can hold and move several thousand gallons of water in a storm like this. The rain gardens are working exceptionally well, and we are working now on a final phase of the project in which we are going to open the back portion of their parking lot, which has a large dirt berm that was put there sometime between the 20s and 50s. We're going to remove that so the water can actually flow off their property and regenerate a stream that once existed in this region. One of our biggest and best examples of environmental management is St. Luke's Episcopal Church in Eastport, Maryland. St. Luke's Episcopal Church installed this, which is called a regenerative stormwater conveyance. It is more than 20 different rain gardens, or pools rather, which have all been interconnected with a series of berms or large rock walls. It essentially functions a lot like how the Titanic ballast system worked, if you are familiar with the Titanic, in which when the pools overflow, they will then cascade into the next pool. This act has tremendously slowed down the flow of water through their property. This 3-acre plot of land is treating around 26 acres of urban blacktop Eastport. In this system, before it was installed, water would pass across the St. Luke's property in a large 1-inch rainstorm in about the span of 4 hours. Today, with the same rainstorm, it would take that water more than 13 days to reach the waterfront. And they know this because they've tested it with dyes, in which they dye the water and measure how long it takes for it to reach the water. This system has attracted in hundreds of different species of wildlife that did not exist there prior to the regeneration of the stream. It is also the host of a couple species which have been restored into this ecosystem, which cannot be found anywhere else in Annapolis. It is with great hope that those species flourish and are able to move with time into other regions. But it's not just in the ground stuff, and I want to stress that. A lot of what IPC does is we help support education. And Morgan really touched on that earlier with the trash cleanups. If you cannot tackle the root of the problem itself, then the next best thing is to educate people about what the problem is. Because when people know what the problem is, then they can take action. And so Highland Presbyterian Church had the same idea. And here we can see a variety of not only their congregation members, but other congregation members from across the Lancaster region joining for a screening all about Flint, the poisoning of an American city, all about lead in water pipes, which is an issue up in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, especially in terms of lead paint, which is still on a lot of the old buildings. And again, on the same front, it starts with education, but once people are educated, they need to do something. And so IPC takes a big stand on advocacy throughout the watershed, especially here in Maryland. We encourage you to look come the spring, the January to March section for what our campaigns will be. We've taken on things like the Maryland the Beautiful Act, phosphate bans in the past, and we had a huge success with the Climate Solutions Now Act this year. We do a lot, and we've helped raise hundreds of voices in response to these bills. We've definitively found that when congregations raise their voice, when not only faith leadership, but the green team leaders themselves raise their voice together, it is heard. And so, how can you help IPC and Potomac Riverkeeper Networks? Well, if you really want to help, I would recommend starting a team. We've found that teams get things done, and it's easier with a team. And so you don't have to go it alone. I encourage you to check out the Partner Pledge if you're interested in joining our greater movement, or checking out Potomac Riverkeepers volunteer opportunities. They're always looking for more people. And of course, you can stay connected with us through our email chat. I ask you again a point that I made at the beginning, which is just to consider the potential if all 18,000 of our congregations and their millions of members came together. So you have the tools now, and so it's your choice. of how we go on this walk together. So thank you very much. This is my contact info. Please, I encourage you to reach out or send me a note. I'm available here for you.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Morgan and Taylor. That was great. Are there any questions for Morgan and Taylor? You can type them in the chat. There's not that many people here, so I'm happy to unmute folks. I'll give it a minute. Let people think about it.
David Gardner, I see you raising your hand there.
I think I let you. You should be able to unmute yourself now. Yeah.
I had 2 questions for Morgan. First, our church congregation is in Charles County. I wanted to ask, how far down the Potomac does the water quality testing occur? Do you need volunteers that far downstream in Charles County?
Certainly. So we're actually trying to expand farther south next year. So our water quality monitoring program only runs during the recreational season from May until the end of September. So we have 2 weeks left of our water quality monitoring program. But we sample all the way down towards Mallows Bay and Port Tobacco and are always looking to have more volunteers hop on. So feel free to shoot me a note after this, and I'd love to get you connected. I think I also saw Lisa Wu, our lab manager, is actually on here as well. She wants to say hello. There she is waving at us. She would love to talk to you about our water quality monitoring program as well, I'm sure, in depth.
Wonderful. I do have a separate question for Taylor, but I don't want to take everyone's time. Taylor, the slideshow that you had about the how to get started, how to form dream teams, is that going to be posted on the IPC website?
Yes, all of that info is, and I'll be sharing a little bit of info with Morgan and Emily here that will go out in a follow-up email.
Fantastic. Thank you both.
Yeah, absolutely. That'll also include everything about Faithful Green Leaders training and a little bit about our learning labs and some of the other upcoming opportunities that we have.
Wonderful. Thanks.
Great.
Absolutely.
Thanks, David. And then I also see, Sean, you asked what type of testing our volunteers do in the chat. We test primarily for E. coli, turbidity, and pH, as well as air and water temperature. We also then note how much rainfall there's been and what tidal stage we're at. You'll notice we don't really do dissolved oxygen or any sort of habitat testing, because we're primarily focused on public health and whether it's safe for folks to recreate in the river. So we mainly focus on bacteria. And those are sampled once a week on Wednesday mornings. Our volunteers will go out, collect the sample, and bring it back to Lisa, who will then process it in our lab and release those results by the weekend. So folks that are going out to recreate on the rivers have access to that data.
Right. Are there any other questions for our lovely presenters? More, Lisa.
I have a question. I would like to switch Water Wednesdays to water to have it on Thursday or Tuesday, if that's okay. It's just I can never participate. I have to have it out in the background, so I didn't mean to look like I was not paying attention. But we have a lot of people dropping off right at that time.
Yeah, Lisa's in our floating lab right now as we speak on the Sea Dog, collecting water samples. So a volunteer in action at the moment.
The Ferris wheel in the background.
How cool is that?
Yeah, if you're down on
Thank you for
Wednesday or
sharing.
Thursday in National Harbor, come say hello. We were usually there in the mornings. And you might catch us in action, be able to come see the lab. You're always welcome to stop by and say hello.
Yeah, absolutely. Love to have you aboard.
All right. Well, unless there's any other questions, I will go ahead and end it there. Morgan, Taylor, you guys have anything to add before we kind of close it out?
No, I just want to thank you all for showing up today and engaging with your local environmental nonprofits and showing up for your watersheds. And like we said, feel free to reach out to any of us if you have other questions once we end this or just want to get involved in any of our organizations.
Great. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you all so much. It was a pleasure to get to speak with you all.
All right. Goodbye, everyone. Have a great day.